Wow, Sam Altman was reinstated as the OpenAI CEO again. And welcome to Products and Cake, everyone. This is a very, very interesting news. And today, with me in the virtual podcast studio of Products and Cake is Paul. How's it going? Have you heard about the news?
I heard about the news, obviously. I tried to follow the drama, but that was not easy. How about you?
No, it was not easy at all. It happens so fast, and it is kind of my version of um, watching drama. Like instead of drama series, I like this kind of drama. But this one was really really fun, um, because everything happened so fast. Within I would say less than a week, Sam Altman, who was the CEO of OpenAI, which is the parent company of ChatGPT, first was sharing his thoughts and ideologies on how can we make AI safer, and the fact that he demanded rules and regulations for AI moving forward. And then within a couple of days, he was fired by the board of OpenAI. Um, and then he was hired in the meantime in Microsoft, or so, he was going to be hired by Microsoft in the meantime. And at the same time, Microsoft owned 49% of OpenAI. So it was a little bit confusing for me. And then the new CEO was going to be announced, and there was apparently an all hands that the team were asked to join to learn a little bit about this change. Less than a dozen people showed up in the all hands of a company of about 800 people, 790 people. Less than a dozen showed up. And then on top of that, there was a Slack message shared that, hey, people, there is this all hands. And more than 700 people reacted, gave middle finger to this post on Slack. And that was really interesting. On top of that, this is a good sign of engagement in a company. Not on a good topic, but I think, and not in a good way, but it's a good sign of engagement that is part of our conversation for today.
The
But before
engagement
we
rate,
jump, what? Sorry, go on.
yeah, please. The engagement rate is quite high, but the
Yeah.
people also love to complain, right?
Yeah, that's true. It is always a little bit easier to complain than to say something positive. But what was interesting that happened right after is that a lot of the employees, I think 700 or more than 700 of the employees, signed a paper that they will resign if Sam Altman is not back as the CEO. And at the same time, Microsoft said that they will offer all of them a position. They have open positions for all of them in their children, in the child company of Microsoft. But based on the latest news that was shared on Washington Post only 5 hours ago, I can see that Sam Altman has been reinstated as the OpenAI CEO with new board members. So the drama is a little bit quiet now. And now that's the time that we can discuss the fun aspects of it, which is the engagement on Slack.
I really wonder who bought already the movie rights on that drama.
True.
Netflix, Disney, Amazon. I'm so 100% sure one of them already got it, and we will see a nice series about it very soon.
Yeah. I really hope so, because also the movie about Facebook was quite interesting, the social network.
So from my perspective, it looks like there's a huge things going on everywhere around us. And then what happens if you look in your Slack channel? What about your engagement rates you recently discovered?
Yeah, exactly. So when I first read the article that so many people on Slack responded, yes, the response was not something that I necessarily would like to receive, but the engagement rate is super high. And when I look at my Slack and when I post something in the channel, no matter how many people are there, it sounds like wind is blowing. It sounds like a cold, windy Berlin night. And uh, yeah, there might be one or two people that might react with a thumbs up emoji, but that's it.
And most of the times, these are the same people, right?
Yeah,
You have some
exactly.
engaged Slack ambassadors who are interacting with every piece of content, but the majority of people stay silent readers.
Yeah, exactly. And I really don't know why, and I really don't know how I can change it, because I have mentioned multiple times that hey, it is good to get some feedback. Hey, can you react with this emoji if you can, if you've read this post? But still, like, maybe it goes up a little bit, maybe 10% for one post, but then again the next one is again low. Do you have any thoughts on that? How is it in your Slack?
Um, you hit a wound point of me because we are a Microsoft Teams company.
Oh no.
And Microsoft Teams have obviously reactions, so you can throw in something, but it is definitely not the same from the UI and UX perspective. It's really impressive, and I was not expecting that, but it is a completely different tool, and it also faces different use cases. So what we are using Microsoft Teams is for writing direct messages to each other, right? If you need to know something from your coworker, you write something, you get an answer. You have super small groups with one or two people, and that is kind of working. But the way of using channels is something I am not familiar with. I don't get how they are supposed to work, and I also have problems in getting notified about the important parts of it. So
Oh.
that makes it quite difficult. Nevertheless, we have obviously a random channel and an all hands channel and so on. And the engagement is low. And what I was thinking is it's a similar thing to social networks, right? Normally, you
Mhm.
assume that maybe 10 to 15% of your user base is actively contributing, where 90%, 85% are just reading. And maybe we are tackling something different if the company team size reaches certain levels.
Yeah, that's true. That's a very interesting comparison that you did with social networks, because, in my opinion, I consider interacting and being active on Slack as part of someone's role. Your role is to, part of it is to communicate, part of it is to share information, part of it is to show that you received some information. So, yes, in the remote setup, we are not necessarily in meeting and ask everyone, hey, did you understand this? And everyone shakes their head. We need to do this asynchronously and not necessarily in a meeting room or in an office, which happens a lot in Slack. So this head shaking that used to happen in meeting rooms needs to be visualized for the person who sent this, to know that people understood something or have paid attention, or know if they have not paid attention, they can figure out another way to reach out the team. But what do you think about that? Do you consider sharing emojis or using gifs on Slack as part of work?
Yeah, that's a very good and valid question. And I think the point that is most important here, you mentioned already, that it is about asynchronous communication.
Hmm.
And it gives you a lot of more reactions than just head shaking. So this is an upside. On the downside, you need to find a way to deal with your FOMO, your fear of missing out. Because if you see a lot of Slack messages or team or whatever chat messenger things going on, then maybe you get a problem in following all of these things. And then it could be possible that you lose track, right? If I open the messenger
Hmm.
and I see I have hundreds of unread messages, I can't go through all of them, and I assume, okay, the important things will pop up again, or someone will inform me in a meeting. So is it maybe connected to the pure amount of messages? Is that something you discovered?
I have not done a little deep dive on this, but it easily might be that people are burnt because of so many information and messages are being shared through multiple channels. You have email, you have Slack, you have a lot of meetings in your calendar, and not always the priority is very clear in your Slack. What I've done that makes it a little bit easier for me, which I think is a great feature that Slack has. I don't know if you have it in Teams or not, but you can within your channels or even the private messages that you have on Slack, you can create categories, and for each category you can first of all order them, which category is first, which category is last, where do they sit, and you can give each one an emoji, so it makes it a little bit easier to find. And so I have categorized my Slack channels because it is so many Slack channels, and I know which one I need to read first. If all of them are highlighted, which one I will go first, which one no, I will. I'm not necessarily the one that needs to react. And I think for each person it is very different, and each person needs to define the category for themselves.
Definitely. You need to find a way on how to deal with all of these input stream. I'm a really big fan of inbox zero principle.
Yeah.
So keeping the email inbox on zero, and you can do basically in most of the messengers the same thing to
Mm-hmm.
close conversations, right? If there's nothing to do anymore, I try to get them out of my way to be sure there is no conversation ongoing where something is expected from my side or where I actively waiting on something. So ideally, my messengers are empty, or there are a few new conversations popping up where I am still considered to answer.
Yeah, sadly, I cannot be that strict with Slack because, as you said, there is always a lot of messages. Uh, Also, something I do in Slack, which I think helps, is that I mute a lot of channels. That it is just maybe for fun, or I am not necessarily very needed, and if I am needed, people will mention me directly. So that already reduces the stress on my Slack a little bit. And yeah, the rest is I will leave the channels when I'm not needed anymore, or when that topic is not needed anymore. And then if people mention me or want me in the channel, they can check and add me again. But leaving channels was really, really helpful for me.
We did one team exercise just recently, and we aligned again on our favorite communication tool.
Mm-hmm.
And it turned out some people prefer Teams, surprisingly. Some people prefer emails, and some just want to get a call. And when we
Oh,
listed all of
interesting.
that, we saw super clear, okay, it's obviously that you're between two team members, your communication is not working as good as this could be because you are monitoring two different channels as your
Mm-hmm.
main channel. So it's always a lag in communication. And since we made that visible and discussed on how we want to be mentioned, it improves because there's another evil communication channel, and that is the ticket system, where you can
Oh,
also
yeah.
write comments and mention people. And I have 500 unread notifications, and I just clear them from time to time. And then I discovered, okay, one coworker was expecting me to answer only on the ticket level, where I'm expecting I can write you just in Teams to and send you maybe the link to the ticket. So first step is making it super transparent and clear, and talk over it again and again, because it slips out of the attention of the people, and we need to find ways to make our communication more mindful. If you just follow every pop-up that tries to get your attention, your workday will be very cluttered. And to come back to your original question, I wonder, Is that part of your job profile to react to every incoming notification and to every ping? Or is it to steer efficient your communication and align with your coworkers on what to expect and what to look at?
That is a very good point. And good question. Thanks to again for repeating again the question. To bring back the topic, uh, I would say yes. It is part of my role to be responsive and to show that I have received the information. The same way to be an active listener. On Slack, I cannot be an active listener because there is no one speaking, but I can show that I have received that information. And yes, true, it is not necessarily part of my job title to be respond in Slack with emojis and gifs, but it is also connected a lot with team morale to bring a little bit of joy and happiness to everyone's world a little bit to the extent that we can in the remote world. And I think yes, that I consider part of my job. Yes, not to every single message that I receive, because as you said, you will end up with a whole day spending just responding and reading messages. Uh, but yeah, a clear communication and clarifying how I can best communicate with the people that I'm working directly with is extremely important. And it's a two-way communication. It is not only the person that shares the information, but also the people who perceive that information need to communicate the receiving of that information.
Yeah, I agree. And it gives us new possibilities in this remote work. And one of these possibilities are our endless flexibility nowadays. And I wanted to ask you, when you are saying part of your job is to respond to messages, how do you deal with your business hours? Is it part of your job to respond at any time, or is it okay to respond at late at night, at midnight, because you are anyway awake and doing some thoughts about your work? Or how do you have strict boundaries?
I think it depends on a company. If currently, no, will try to not respond uh, out of the core working hours. So, out of the regular working hours, I try not to annoy people because a lot of the team members do have Slack on their phone and do have notifications on. And besides that, it is not a good example setting for the team to see, oh, this person worked until 9 p.m. and responded to my message at 9 p.m. because they don't know the details. They don't know that maybe from 2 to 3 I was out, so I need to work for another hour from 8 to 9. They don't know this information, so it might set a bad example. So for these two reasons, I try not to do that in the current company I'm at. But previously, I've been in a company that everyone had flexible working hours. We did not have a core working hour. We had people all over the world working on the product. So it didn't matter at any time of the day you were answering, it did not necessarily bother anyone. We all set our notifications off when we were not working, and also when we were working we did not necessarily care about notifications because you knew that the other person that you might talk to might be off in the next 10 minutes or might be still has work to do for another 7 hours. So it really depends on the company culture for me
Yeah.
and the company
And
agreement.
And again, I want to add the transparency here and to make that clear in the beginning, right? It should not be the job of your new joiner to figure out how this is handled in your remote first company or however you want to call your work environment. It should be handed out. It should say, hey, we have people all over the world in all time zones. Work whenever you want, but make sure you have your 12 hours, 14 hours of rest, or make sure you have your 8 hours of working time, and use the status message of the messenger consciously. right? And
Yeah.
respect it if someone else is out of office. And I would wish to have a message, a feature like I see in Telegram nowadays. I can write a message that is delivered when the people get online, when the person get
Oh,
online.
that's super nice.
Yeah, if you right click the send button and the person is sharing their availability times, then you can send it on the right time. Or on most of the messengers, you can also send on time based. Because
Yeah,
I also follow flexible working hours, and sometimes I work at really ugly times. And in the past, I thought, okay, it's in the responsibility of every person to mute their phones or mute the notifications if they want to sleep. But turned out not many people are doing it. The FOMO is real, and they forgot it, and then you are with friends and your phone is ringing and you just take a look, and then your mind is again switched into work mode even though you try to
exactly.
avoid it. So I think it's the responsibility of a good coworker to know and respect the working hours of the people, of your
Yeah, I completely
colleagues.
agree. Yeah, I think it was a great conversation. We did a lot of turns and twists, but I'm happy where we ended up with.
It is again a beautiful icing on the cake of team engagement, right?
Exactly. Yeah, true. So I can summarize it in a couple of points that first, there are different methods that we work. So, as an example, that our work has different ways. One of the ways is communication. That communication can be through meetings, etc., or it can be online. It can be on Slack, but it is important to agree on the way that we communicate. It is important to communicate not only when you have the information to share, but when you are also receiving information to react to it. And it is important to respect the status and the agreement that you have with your team on the core working hours, on the ways of working, and when to send information to each other.
Yeah,
Did I miss anything, Paul?
I don't think so.
Great,
um,
because you usually take care of the summarizing at the end. I was like, let me do it this time.
the AI will tell us if there was missing point. um, but no, this conclusion is a great way into transparency. And yeah, I, share this podcast with one of your coworkers who writes messages out of working hours, or is thinking about this topic, or is not responding to your Slack messages, or is just a great communicator, because sometimes you just need to get a glimpse into some topics and some ideas to start with, right? And then our day-to-day work will become better.
That
Pleasure
is
talking to you, Goncha. Thank you a lot.
that was a great ending. I really liked it. Please send this podcast to others. Yeah, it was also really nice talking to you, Paul. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.